Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Prescott's Town Council meeting for February 26th, 2020. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask for council's permission to start off with a brief moment of silence tonight in memory of Jeanette Runciman, who was lost very recently, very sad circumstances, and just wanted to give our best to the family as well. And of course. And Pat Kingston as well, who passed away a little earlier this year as well. It's been a sad time. It's been a while now, I guess, so I do apologize for everyone not catching former Mayor Kingston on that as well. So we could have a moment of silence for both Pat Kingston, dedicated to serving at Prescott for many years, and Jeanette Runciman, who of course is a public servant in her own right. All the years she basically worked as a team player with Bob. And Bob, of course, is such a good friend of the municipality as well, doing some good work with us for the ferry project. So if I could ask for a moment of silence in memory of these two fine individuals. Thanks, everyone. And again, condolences and best wishes to both families in such sad times. So moving right on to item 2, we do have tonight's approval of the agenda, and I guess Councilor Young has that one.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Shankar that the agenda for the council meeting of February 26th, 2020 be approved as presented.
Thank you very much, Councilor Young. Any comments, questions on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Item 3, declarations of interest. Any declarations tonight from members of council? So no. 4, presentations. Nothing on the schedule tonight. Same with delegations under 5. 6, as usual, is the minutes of previous council meetings. And 6.1 is our set of minutes from a regular council meeting on January 27th. Councilor McConnell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Burton, that the council minutes of January 27th, 2020 be accepted as, and I've changed it from presented to be amended because I did find a mistake in there. Usually when I find a mistake that's a little one, I just email staff and either Lindsay or Kimberly change it. This one was too good to pass up though, so I thought I would bring your attention to it this evening, and it's on page 7, number 14, and I'll read it. Discussion was held regarding the pedestrian bicycle ferry and the option of shaving the road shoulders on King Street. Now I know we have at least one dedicated barber in town, that would be Bob Miller, but I think shaving the shoulders of King Street would be likely beyond his capabilities, so we won't ask him to do it. Obviously that refers to paving the shoulders of King Street, which I brought up at that meeting, and as long as I bring it up, it occurs to me that you being our main connection on United Counties, and they're the ones that have come up with the idea of paving the shoulders, perhaps if you hear in your travels that they are going to be paving east of us, that you could let us know ahead of time, perhaps we could get it in a budget, and maybe even work with them with the same paver or something to save the town some money in doing it. And that's all.
Thank you. Yeah, it does sound like a great idea. I can't bring up the joint services because they're very tight about, and the road work is not.
Well, it's one of those things, you know.
If we could, yeah, absolutely. If we could pass that on to staff as well, so we can coordinate that with our operations department and theirs, because yeah, anytime we can obviously combine the effort. Any other comments on that set of minutes? Not seeing, then I'll call the question. All in favor? And 7 is communications and petitions. 7.1, action items. No action items this evening. 7.2, information items, as always distributed to council under separate cover. Councilor Young with that motion, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Shankar. The information items under separate cover and received and filed.
much. Councilor Young, open it up for comments, questions on the information items. Anyone like to speak to an item tonight or possibly refer on committee?
I'll be speaking to the fire department, so report later.
Certainly. Anything else from the information items this evening? Seeing no, I'll turn to the motion and call the question. All in favor? Motion's carried. And moving right along, item 8, committee reports. 8.1 is committee of the whole report 03-2020. Back to you, Councilor Ostrander.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Shankar, that committee of the whole minutes dated February 3rd, 2020, be accepted as presented.
Thank you very much, Councilor Ostrander. You'll have a chance to look at that set of minutes. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All in favor? Motion's carried. And 8.2 is committee of the whole report 04-2020. Just the one item there as well under 8.2A. Councilor Shankar, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Young, that the committee of the whole minutes dated February 18, 2020 be accepted as presented.
Thank you very much, Councilor Shankar. Any comments, questions on that set of minutes from February 18th? Thank you, sir. Anything else? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. And takes us right to item 9, mayor's portion this evening. I'm going to keep this fairly short because we are going to talk about one item later on. I did attend 2 Ogdensburg City Council meetings in the last few weeks. The first night when we presented with, I believe, Dana, you were there that night, Mike, and Councilor Jansman as well, along with former Senator Runciman too. We had a nice turnout. Oh, Fraser Lassinger was there, a former councilor and member of the ferry committee. A great reception in Ogdensburg that night, but they did bring it back for discussion and a vote just this past Monday. I attended the meeting again on Monday night in Ogdensburg. Same great reception. Happy to report that it was unanimously accepted, approved by the council. A lot of great words and a lot of great enthusiasm there for going ahead with that pilot project this summer, and of course tremendous hope that we'll be able to make it an ongoing thing, depending of course on how it's received this summer. Everything lines up with the ferry operator and so forth. Obviously a little bit more to do there. This is coming up a little later on the agenda. I do want to thank Dana for her hard work on this in the last couple of years. She's been kind of the lead on this staff side along with Matthew, but Dana's done a lot of great work on that. I'll acknowledge her on that this evening. So I think we're at a good point now where everybody's on track and enthusiastic. And just for people at home that are wondering why we're kind of doing this again, just to clarify, Ogdensburg had a municipal election last fall, and there were 4 new members of their council, including the new mayor, new deputy mayor. So we wanted to re-engage with them and ensure that their support level was still there, and it is. It's very strong, and also great support with Patty Ritchie, the state senator over there, as well, and her staff working with the city and working with our working group. And again, thanks as always to former Senator Bob Runciman. Done tremendous work on that, brought that to us in the first place, and has been a real leading figure in getting this rolling. So it's great to be there with Bob on that first night as well. Another mention, I did attend the Bioindustrial Consortium announcement today in Brockville. Very exciting announcement. I won't get into the full particulars because there's a lot to this, but the essential points are that BIC, Bioindustrial Consortium, was originally based solely in southwestern Ontario in Sarnia-Lambton. I've opened a second southeastern Ontario location here. It's essentially beginning with a campus located in Brockville, the Apex building on Strowger, but a lot of the focus is on some industrial sites in the area, largely the former DuPont and Vista site in Maitland here now. Very exciting. It's a $15 million investment from the federal government here, and there is the possibility, as Sandy Marshall, who attended the announcement this morning and spoke on behalf of BIC, he is the principal with BIC. The end result here should be 700 jobs spread between southwestern in southeastern Ontario, if I remember the number correctly. Tremendous investment. This whole project was led locally by the St. Lawrence Corridor Economic Development Commission as well. So it's a big success for the corridor. It shows why we supported the corridor in the first place, shows that success, shows the value of teamwork, and it shows what we can do when we work together. And the 7 municipalities have formed a very nice team there. This is just one of the successes there. There have been some others, but this is the biggest one, and it really lays the groundwork for bringing some significant jobs, new jobs as well. This is new economy. This is green technology. These are forward-thinking investments that take the best of what we can offer here and really build some going concern businesses around this. It was a very exciting announcement this morning, and I don't have it yet, but I will have the presentation that Mr. Marshall delivered this morning with the specifics, and I'll distribute it through staff so everyone can see that, because this is a very exciting time for us, and we're obviously a big part of BIC through the corridor. So exciting days, and I think this just bodes really well for moving forward in the future with the corridor and with BIC. So with that, I'll leave off this evening. Those are the 2 main points I wanted to raise. So I'll move on to item 10, outside boards, committees, and commissions, and start as always with Councilor Burton.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to participate in Walker House workshop recently. It was attended by 26 lovely individuals. Lots going on at Walker House, and it's always a great place to meet new people and try new things. So I'd like to encourage some people in town to check it out. It's good social time for everybody as well. The LG trade show is coming up on March 6th and 7th at the community center, so that's definitely going to be well attended as well as last year. And the walking club is doing quite well. We had over 30 participants this Tuesday alone, and actually 3 new participants that just moved to the area.
Great.
So which is great. So in total, I think there's 10 new residents that have joined the Walker Club. So it's nice.
It's fantastic.
Yep, it is fantastic. It's going quite well. So that's it for me.
One quick comment on the walking. We are just doing that during the day, correct, at the arena? Might not be the worst idea to look at it, if it is, especially if it's that popular, because I have heard a couple of comments from people that would like to use it in the evenings. So I don't know if that's something doable, but it does sound like it's a growing concern too. And I have heard that comment, so just leave it with staff to maybe potentially look at, because it does seems very popular. It's nice to see the arena being used so much.
Absolutely, and people that have the opportunity to check out our new board there, the citizen and business and volunteer plaques that have been put up there, so they're really taking the time to look at that. So.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Councilor McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Speaking of Walker House, and the subject's already been raised, I'm on the board of Walker House, and on the 31st of January, we had our annual general meeting and lunch. The lunch was excellent, I might comment. We went through the various trips and things that Walker House provided over the course of the year, and I really have to give credit to Susan Dallin. She puts on a very good program down there. I think we're very lucky to have her. After the meeting on the 12th of February, I got an email from Susan, as did the rest of the board, indicating that a grant that she had applied for the renovations of the kitchen at Walker House, in the amount of $22,100 had been approved. So the kitchen at Walker House will be renovated at no cost to the town. Walker House has been keeping some money in reserve in case this had not been approved, that they could do part of the renovations with their internal money. And since this money is not going to be required, they are looking at what they can do in the community with this money in the way of programs. So that's something we'll be working on for the next unfortunately, I missed the library board meeting. I was away last week. But I am looking forward to participating in the trade show that Councilor Burton mentioned this weekend. I'll be at the rink from 3 to 4:30, I think it is. And the Shakespeare Gala on Saturday evening, and I'm sure I'll see some of council there. Thank you.
Thank you. Should note, I actually was talking to Dave Animal the other day, and they pretty much had another, I think we were talking to him on Friday morning at the Augusta, that they're almost sold out again, so fantastic. He had two booths, and he was positive he'd sell them out, so big success in the trade show. Councilor Ostrander.
Thank you, Your Worship. Few things on February here. First of all, February 4th was the monthly fire department meeting. Report for January is in your information package. Dispatch calls 12, one structure fire. And of note, of course, is that ever-increasing category of medical assist. They had 5 and out of their 12 calls in the month for that. So that's something that they're learning to live with. And when you're the closest entity, you get the call, and you usually end up there first. Anyway, moving right along, of course, the two funerals, I attended both the Kingston and the Runston funerals, and that's always too many in any given time. February 10th, I attended, as the mayor mentioned, with the ferry committee to the first session over there, the first council meeting there, and things are looking promising there. Of course, January and June are 2 different periods, so we'll hope that June looks as promising as January does. February 18th, we could go yesterday. The mayor and I attended a Grenville County Police Services Board, basically an information session. It was what it was intended to be. There's some changes coming with the Police Services Board. There's some going to amalgamate, some are going to go bigger. There's a variety of ideas on the table right now. We have our own meeting tomorrow morning, and maybe next time up we'll have a little more to report as to where that's going. The changes are supposed to be instituted by the end of this year, so we have some time to play with some options, and so here's hoping that it goes well for everybody. Tomorrow morning, like I said, is our Police Services Board meeting. Yesterday was, Tuesday. Being on Wednesday night, this is kind of Tuesday, yesterday morning was our Connect Youth Services Board, and I'm really enjoying that because I was sort of on board a few years ago with it just as a volunteer, and now to actually sit and be a member of the board and listen to what's going on. They have a lot on their plate, and they're handling it very well. They have a good board. They have a cross-section of people from retired, working from various professions, and it's really coming along quite nicely. So. Anyway, that's it for me.
Thank you very much. Councilor Schenker.
Thank you. So I attended a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and that went well. We discussed a little bit about the tripartite combination of hiring a coordinator for that DNA, so that was good. I also went to the Business Retention and Expansion meeting. It was well attended, lots of good information, good for local businesses, and lots of different services that were there that could help local businesses. So hopefully they do that on a yearly basis and get more and more businesses there. A note from the operations department, they started with the good weather, they started filling in some potholes around town that were swallowing up small cars, so that's good. I also noticed that on today's South Grenville Journal, they were appointed Star of the Week, the operations department. So that was kind of nice that the public of the town and the residents of the town had supported them and nominated them to win that Star of the Week. The last thing I wanted to note was with the LG approved, that's the following weekend, the trade show. Every dollar that's collected at the door, $2 admission, is going towards rink. So I think last year they donated $2,000. So that's a nice little bonus for the rink fund.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Councilor Young.
I don't have anything Lodge, and tomorrow afternoon I have my Board of Health Management meetings. That's it.
Thank you. One other thing I did want to mention really briefly is I ran into someone today, just at Tim Hortons after you adjourned our meeting, right? But I wanted to mention and thank everyone for the comments here last week, or 2 weeks ago, when I had to leave early on Barb Marshall, who had just left us as a crossing guard. I talked to her son Jim today, who was very appreciative of the comments made. I saw it in the paper afterwards. I wanted to convey that. I know you mentioned had some kind words for Barb. We all know Barb. Everybody loves Barb. She's been a big part of this community for a long time. And Jim just wanted to mention just how thankful he was and how much his mother really appreciated. She read the write-up in the paper and really appreciated that. So I wanted to bring that back to everyone as well. And you know, just this is our one meeting that's on Cogeco now, so people see that out there. Maybe Barb will see this meeting. Just wanted to thank her again for all her years of service, and you're definitely missed out there, Barb. But enjoy the break and enjoy the retirement. So on to item 11, staff. We have a number of items here. So 11.1 is staff report 12-2020 on the sale of surplus land, 555 King Street West. Mr. Anderson.
So, as previously announced and put for public notice in the newspaper as well as online, we have received an offer from United Counties to buy 555 King Street West. To make perfect clarity, it is the front building, it is not the back building, and so that's the one that we're talking about. The purchase amount was for $290,000, and there was a number of conditions, the most significant of which is rezoning that building, because currently there's a site-specific restriction that would only allow physician or medical practitioner's office or clinic or pharmacy. And so that was the one restriction that has to be removed. We're going through that process currently, and there'll be a public meeting on March 18th to discuss that, and anyone who has concerns to bring those forward at that time. So the decision of council, and which is absolutely very wise, is to take the proceeds of that sale and dedicate it in a reserve for the replacement of the water tower. And so certainly that would be something that we would move forward with upon closing. The closing date is scheduled for April 30th, and we have been in discussions with all the current users to find new homes for them, and certainly so far no major requests from that perspective.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. Open it up for discussion. I'll note that this is coming up again, of course, under bylaws to actually formalize the sale, but we could have the discussion now because we are commenting on the staff report that contains the majority of the pertinent information, so open up for discussion. Councilor McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. We're going back a long way, but when that building was built, it provided a very useful function. It helped to gather the doctors that were here, there, all over the town, in some inadequate locations with poor parking and not the greatest office space. It encouraged them to build in the adjacent building to it. It provided a spot that was well needed in town because there was virtually no available commercial space at that time. Prescott was booming, all the commercial space was rented, and this provided a space for those health organizations to operate out of. That's no longer the case. We have considerable available commercial space in town that the organizations can look into, operate out of, and I think that the time has passed that the town requires the building for that purpose, and I think the fact that it is going to United Counties, also in the social service atmosphere, is a very good use for the building. And also I think the council's decision to put the money wholly towards water tank, which is a needed thing, is also a good decision. So I am in favor of this, and I will and have voted in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further comments? Councilor Young?
Just curious if anyone else had approached us to buy the building once it was declared surplus.
No, I received one email, and which was just an inquiry as to the use, and they thank me very much for the answer. And then attached in their package and report this evening is one letter of comment, but there was no letters of offer or made for the building.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Councilor Young. Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Other comments? Okay, this was just presented for information. We will be voting on the bylaw a little later on. Just to, Councilor McConnell really said it all. I just want to make a comment myself on that. It was a very valuable building in its day, and in the 70s when it was constructed, it served a definite purpose. That purpose really is no longer. There are just a couple of user groups in there now, and I guess the one question I would have, Mr. Armstrong, you did speak to CPHC, and there's another agency there, a private agency that does deal with some health-related matters. Any concerns or questions on, and I know we're helping them find alternative location, but any comment on that, on how they've,
So far, so good, and so certainly SCPC in particular has some very specific needs. They were able to communicate those to me, and then we're working together to find more alternative.
and, I mean, that's the one concern that has been expressed, is putting the services out, but we actually have other facilities we could actually assist them with. We've got the space here coming open in the town hall. We've got the arena now, so I mean, there are options that we can help with. And as Councilor McConnell mentioned, there are some options in the downtown core as well. So maybe the private industry could actually help here, and we could actually fill a commercial space as well. Some of those buildings are challenging because of the age of them, but I mean, if anything we can do to help bolster the private market, that may help as well. But and the other, of course, the end of this is it's almost $300,000 for the water tower, which is a significant chunk of change for a project that 2.5 million or more. We don't know the exact number, but it's going to be a significant hit. So this helps with the groundwork to put some money away from it. Councilor Young?
I guess the other item that we discussed during this process was the fact that we have not been able to rent it to a break-even point.
Yeah.
We were losing money on it without the capital that we presumed there will be need for capital expenses down the road. We recently replaced the roof at $50,000 or something, so to take it off the liability side of our ledger and put some money in the bank and gain some taxes down the road, correct?
We're still confirming the taxes, and we will be back to that.
But those were factors that we considered during the meeting.
Yeah, good point. It's kind of a win-win-win. Water tower, it's an asset that we, quite frankly, it's not essential to our needs right now, and we're turning a loss into something on the positive side of the ledger. Any further comments? Councilor McConnell?
It occurs to me as well that when the building was partially empty, in an attempt to fill it, we found ourselves in competition with private enterprise a few years ago. We won the battle, so to speak, but I don't really think we should be in the business of competing with private enterprise to rent space, because we have the public dollar behind us and can spend money on something where private enterprise is relying on their own pocket, so it's not really a fair competition. And if that's the type of, if that's what we're doing with the building, then we really don't need to be doing that.
Yeah, it's an excellent point as well. Any further comments? Okay, we'll move along. That was just provided for information, but we'll be back to that on 13.1. 11.2 is staff report 13-2020. For information only, also the joint passenger and bicycle ferry executive summary pilot project. A little update on where we are with that. I'm not sure, is that Dana, are you taking that, or does Matt, or you?
I can take that.
Okay.
And we will.
Mr. Armstrong.
So just echoing what the mayor said earlier, Dan has provided some excellent work around doing this and bringing it forward to the state that it's at today. So wanting to publicly thank her for that. And also the work we'll be working to really kind of keep with this initiative and to bring it to a point where we can actually make a decision. So this report that you see in front of you this evening, the executive summary, is the same report that was given to the Ogdensburg City Council for their contemplation and consideration. So in here, there's 4 basic concepts that we need to start to move towards. And so if that results in a motion tonight, that's fantastic. But certainly that's the bottom line. The first one is to commit to undertaking the bicycle and passenger ferry pilot project. The second is to determine which weekends it will run. The third is to secure a formal agreement from both border agencies. And finally, finding a charter vessel to operate the ferry on those 2 or 3 weekends. So really what it comes down to from a financial perspective is we would operate the ferry and the charter of the ferry at a break-even analysis. So if we have a ferry that can contain 30 people and we average it at 25 individuals over an 8-hour period, then we would be aiming to determine how many people that would encompass. And over an 8-hour period, if you're doing 25 each way, that would be a total of 200 in each direction, or a total of 400 trips. And based on our initial consultation, the cost for chartering the ferry would be between $2,000 and $4,000 per day. So if you take that perspective and work at a break-even point, then one trip, one way would cost between $5 on the low end or $10 at the high end on a daily basis. So really that's what we're focusing on from that cost perspective, making sure that the passengers and those using the ferry really recover the cost of being able to have that service there. And then we have put in the budget, I believe, approximately $5,000 to cover things such as marketing, activation on those days. And if you remember when we talked about this previously, is that we would align one of those weekends with a bicycling group to ascertain exactly how that would function. And then another weekend would be more activation within both Ogdensburg and Prescott to gauge just the reaction of how people would naturally use it. So that's really what the stage we're at, and certainly there will be one more decision point when we are able to determine those dates, secure the agreement around those dates initially from the border securities, and finally once we're able to determine who a charter possibility is. And so that would come back to council as a go or no-go at that point, because we would have the vast majority of facts and then be able to move forward from there. But we're now at the end of February, and if we want to get this done this summer, then it's imperative that we certainly start putting some horsepower behind it.
So, Mr. Armstrong, you did mention the possibility of a motion tonight. Is there any chance we have some draft, somebody's, Kurt was surprised at that. And just as the draft wording we could look at, I'm not sure what you're looking for is to kind of kickstart the process right now. Obviously, it still comes back to us for final approval, but if you could, if there's anything.
Did you want to approve the pilot project tonight, or direct staff to proceed with the necessary arrangements, or how?
Yes, I think my thought would be to direct staff to proceed with solidifying dates, having agreement with the border securities, and finding a charter operator to be able to operate on whatever dates those are, and then being able to come back to council for a final decision, so that way we all know what the financial implications are.
So
I'll
then I'll
need to
just,
ask the last.
through you, Mr. Mayor, the council direct staff to proceed with the necessary arrangements to conduct a pilot for summer 2020, report back to council on the details.
Yeah, details and costing. So that doesn't absolutely commit us, but it gets the process, continues the process with staff. Are we okay with wording there? Anyone willing to make that motion, put it on the table for discussion? Councilor Ostrander, seconded Councilor McConnell. So put it out there for discussion and open it up for comments and questions. Councilor McConnell.
Question that you may be able to answer, Mayor Tom, and of course, to make it to Ogdensburg. this last time, but Augsburg's new council has indicated their unanimous support for it. And given the fact that no operator is going to operate at a loss basis, I would have to presume that whatever they charge, whether it's 2,000, 4,000, 3,000, or whatever, if the fees for the people that are taking the ferry across do not equal that cost, somebody is going to have to pay it. And I would be interested to know if Augsburg Council is interested in providing half of that shortfall, because if they're not, it will affect my decision on how I'm going to vote on that.
Great question. The answer is yes. Sarah Purdy, the city manager over there, raised that exact point the other night. She had talked to Mr. Armstrong about that exact matter and did raise it with their council the other night, the possibility of, she was talking potential $5,000, a maximum $10,000 shortfall. The other part of this I want to outline, and I don't know the exact dollar figure, Matthew, you might, but one of the reasons we went and we fronted the study originally to the tune of the $50,000 that we spent is because there were state dollars attached to marketing and other expenses that are still there that Senator Ritchie has provided to the city on this. It's a significant amount of money. I'm not sure what the number is, but it's 50,000 as well. I thought that was the number. So they've got that money to play with as well. And that's something that we're going to have to discuss with the city about that, just to make sure that everything is very equitable here, and also reflecting and respecting the fact that we put the 50,000 in up front, because the whole plan was we put it up front now. They had money for the after. They couldn't put it in for the study because the money they had did not, it wasn't to be used for studies. It was more capital and concrete things like marketing studies, and possibly even the vessel itself, because they talked about the possibility even of Augsburg buying the vessel at one point. So we've got to talk about that with the money, but yeah, absolutely, that cost sharing is huge. And personally, I think, and I communicated that to Mr. Armstrong the other night, to make sure we get that back to the subcommittee, we've got to talk about that money and how we get a bit more of our fair share back, because we did spend the 50 up front. So it is being definitely looked at. So that's probably a longer answer than you wanted.
No, it's a good answer. It's one I'm glad to hear, but perhaps you could clarify that 50 before you scare people. We didn't actually take that whole 50 out of our pocket, did we? Part of that was a grant, as I recall.
So it was actually 45,000, and we used the planning reserve to be able to support it. With the change in government, they didn't have the funding available to be able to take advantage of.
I was under the impression that half of that was covered by a grant and something.
That was absolutely the intention, but then when the grant wasn't available, we already committed to it.
Interesting. It's the first I've heard that.
Yeah, actually, I raised it a while ago as well. It did come up. That was something that Mr. Armstrong did convey that back to council, and we did, so that's my recollection anyways. And anyhow, where we are now is I think there's room there to work with Augsburg. They do have that funding now, so we're just gonna have to talk as part of the subcommittee and make sure that everything's equitable now. And council obviously will have final say on this anyways. It will need to come back. Any follow-up, Councilor Shaw?
Not pleasant. When I voted to spend half of that for the study, I didn't vote to spend all of it for the study, and I don't ever remember that coming back to council. So while I am supporting this and while I'm pleased that Augsburg is willing to cover half the cost of the shortfall, I'm not happy that we spent that kind of money without council approval, because I don't know, I would be interested to hear that. When that was.
Yeah, if we get the background on that from Mr. Armstrong, at any rate, yeah, no, unfortunately, yeah, I do remember hearing about the grant funding being lost, but it's quite some time ago now. Go back into the last term, I think it was before Councilor Shangar joined us. Further comments, question? Councilor Young, did you?
I have similar concerns, which I've expressed before. I didn't think the study that was provided divided, 100 and some pages. I don't think it made a case that people would run out and invest in that business. And while I would be happy to support a private enterprise undertaking something like this, I don't think it's something that the town wants to finance. That would be still my position. Moving forward with more accurate numbers, I have no problem with that. But I'm not eager to see the town spend a great deal of money on this.
And I think, just for everyone's reassurance, Mr. Armstrong, we are talking about minimal coverage at this point now. If, for example, we did have disastrous weather, it didn't work out, is there any, like, the numbers that I mentioned at Sarah Purdy, is that basically what's your level of comfort with the numbers I just mentioned?
Absolutely. So I think definitely the understanding was is that we would focus on the report and the feasibility study, and then they would be able to bring much more to the table because they had the state dollars to support the actual function of it.
Thank you. Further comments, questions? Councilor
Well, having been over there on February 10th and attended the meeting, I'm under the impression that with the 4 new people, we hit a bit of a flat spot until we get the feeling from them that they understand the whole concept of this. And the mayor's since been again and feels that they seem to be on board with this. So it's just a matter of, Matthew talks to Mrs. Purdy and we make sure, that it's moving forward at the pace we hope it is.
And like I say, it is being backed by the state government through Senator Ritchie's office as well. They've been a huge supporter and did supply them with that funding. I'm not going to say, like I sit here and say that I absolutely know it's going to be a huge success. We don't know, but that's why the pilot is, I think it's a relatively minimal, and any expenditure is significant when you're talking about taxpayer dollars. But at the same time, I mean, cycling tourism is a big booming industry. There's hundreds and hundreds of cyclists going through our area every year. And if we can promote ourselves as some sort of hub for regional cycling, I think we're well positioned to take advantage of a growing marketplace. That said, starting anything new and innovative is generally going to cost a couple of bucks. And I think we're just going to have to really keep an eye on this, take a look at what is brought back by staff, and then determine how we go forward and how we control whatever the costs are. So the one positive is the Americans do have money for this stage of the project, so we're going to have to talk about how that's being utilized going forward, because we're not going to make any bones about it. We've endured the burden so far, and now I think it's time to share it with them. And from everything I understand, they feel the same, and it's grant funding for them, and unfortunately our grant didn't work out, but they did get some funding there, and I think it's an exciting project. I think it's got real potential, but we won't know until we run the vessel a few times and see what the interest is. I've got to admit, from the odd naysayer, I have heard, but I've heard a lot of positives about this as well. There's people that love the concept, love the whole idea, the novelty of taking the ferry across. Whether that turns into reality, who knows? Because I've heard that before with different items. I heard it with Loyalist Days for casino night, and flies in the building, more flies than people in the building, and more mosquitoes. So anyways, you never know, but we've come a long way with this. And the other thing I will mention is the relationship we've established with Augsburg here is huge. Whether that's valuable, I mean, because they're on the other side of the border, obviously it's another country, we don't see it as often. But I mean, we've historically had that strong relationship, and we've really bolstered that here. I can't say enough about the new council either. Mayor Mike Scully and the 3 new councilors and the existing 4 as well. They've always been big supporters, and one of the things I found out in the trips over, and Mike would have noticed that night as well, is virtually most of you guys are boaters. And one actually is over here all the time, going to O'Heathey's, to Boomers, to the Red George, always bring his boat across. And 2 others come over on a fairly regular basis as well. So it is fostering good cross-border relations, and we're already talking about possibly extending that to other areas. I know Sarah's mentioned it, Mayor Skelly mentioned it the other night to me as well, both during the meeting and then afterwards. So I think we need to be looking for more potential partnerships between the two communities, especially around tourism, and for making more use of our marina, our harbor. Like we were always talking about, we want that marina to make money and not cost us. Maybe there's something there, I don't know, but I think the way you get there is talking, and we've really got a good dialogue established now. So the motion that was presented was moved by Councilor Ostrander, seconded by Councilor McConnell, that council direct staff proceed with the necessary arrangements for the passenger bicycle ferry pilot project for summer 2020, and report back to council with the details and costing. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion carried. And 11.3 is staff report 14-2020 on regional collaboration. A couple of items there. Councilor Ostrander, you had a
11.3, moved by myself, second by Councilor Shankar, that council direct staff to participate in the Regional Fire Services Study and the Regional Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan.
Thanks very much, Councilor Ostrander. Since you're introducing this motion, any comment to lead us into that?
Well, something came up very early in this calendar year, and we would be looking into it further, and this is basically where we brought it to now. The Regional Fire Services Study has been brought up at the fire department's meetings a couple of times since I've been doing it. And the Regional Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan is that huge amount of reading that's attached to our council package this week, and it's a lot. There's a lot in there, but it's basically stuff that I've been familiar with in the past. That you include health and safety people, you include injury prevention people, a lot of things that go on here. But perhaps I could have Mr. Armstrong comment on it as well.
Certainly. So that's the nutshell version. You're going to give us a longer version, I guess.
Okay. So certainly the regional fire studies, and I believe this was born out of a report from 2018 that was done in 2017, 2018, that further study needs to be done in very specific areas. And so that was the intention of the modernization intake application that was submitted by the United Counties. And certainly they see the town of Gilmacquid, town of Prescott, and the city of Rockville as being natural partners in that. So what they've put forward, and I believe they've issued the RFP for, because they have been granted the $120,000 to conduct the effort and the fire study, that we would participate as part of that. We don't anticipate at this point that it would be an incremental cost, but if there is any, then the three municipalities, three separate municipalities would share in that. If there is that possibility, then certainly we would bring that back to council, and we could use our own modernization funding that we received last March to be able to participate in that. Certainly my discussion with the fire chief is that we've identified a number of areas where we can naturally collaborate, such as purchase of medical supplies, being able to coordinate inspections of equipment, and being able to save money from that perspective. And then there's also obviously broader issues such as training and really taking a collaborative effort to be able to address it from a wider perspective and across the region. So really, I think for us, this is a great thing that we want to participate in, and it would end up resulting in possible savings and at the very least collaboration of being able to work together with our neighbors. The second part of that is the community safety and wellbeing plan, and I do apologize for the length of that particular document, but certainly it's one of the things that we have to do by January 1st of 2021, and each municipality is required to undertake one. Part of that is collecting the data and being able to ascertain where some of our hotspots might be and where we could create initiatives to better address those trends that are occurring in town from both a crime, engagement, and well-being perspective. And so that we thought as a group of municipalities that it would be really helpful to work together. The public health unit has already worked on a couple of them and done it both for Lanark as well as a couple of municipalities in Leeds and Greco. And so there's 10 remaining municipalities, and just simply based on census that are for the data gathering side of it would be approximately, I believe, less than $5,000. And but there's also the other side of it, which is actually our engagement, which we'll undertake throughout this year, so that we have a good, solid plan by the time we hit the new year, and be able to really start to have some of those initiatives hopefully have an impact on community safety.
Thank you very much. Open it up for discussion, comments, questions? Councilor McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I was astounded when I mentioned the thickness of this thing when I started reading through it. I think the regional fire services study is an excellent thing. I mean, we already have cooperation with our neighbors in the fire protection, and anything more we can do there is only to everybody's benefit. And things like ambulances, which are very specific again. St. Lawrence Lodge, which Ray is on the board of, health unit, those are very specific things that benefit our community and our members. Regional community safety and well-being plan is a huge thing. I'm just worried that we are going to wind up spending an awful lot of staff time on a report, which is going to be a book, and it's going to wind up on a shelf somewhere with a plan that is never going to be seen. As a matter of fact, I underlined something here which I can't seem to put my finger on now, that emphasizes that. Just bear with me a second. I was right in the front here. Here we are. I'm just going to read a very short paragraph. The ultimate goal of this type of community safety and well-being planning is to achieve sustainable communities where everyone is safe. Okay, well, that's the safe part of the whole thing. But then the rest of it, it goes on to say, has a sense of belonging, opportunities to participate, where individuals and families are able to meet their needs for education, health care, food, housing, income, and social and cultural expression. The success of society is linked to the well-being of each and every individual. That's pretty broad. That to me is an awful lot of work, an awful lot of time spent, an awful lot of money. And at the end of the day, we have an emergency planning group. If something goes wrong here, I'm not sure that this isn't just something that somebody thought was a great idea and the government fired down the line, and we're going to have to deal with as part of our operation. And I don't know that our staff doesn't have better things to spend your time on. I think all of those things, quite frankly, are already covered in what we do, in what the school boards do, in what already goes on here. And I think it's just going to point out that when we get this huge thing that maybe somebody reads once and there it is, but we don't have a choice. We have to do it. It's from Big Brother.
Yeah, this is the kind of legislation that makes the people that write these studies just salivate. Because that's really, you hit it right in the head. It's a make-work project in a lot of ways. It's a shame that this government's going through with it, because there was a lot of comments about it when it first, everyone was hoping it would die, and now it hasn't, and here we are going into it for I'm not sure, I'm not gonna comment on the eventual benefits, but they do seem questionable. Like you say, we're kind of stuck. Any other comments?
Well, hopefully, the people that are tasked with putting the final report together will say here, go to the various agencies and say, okay, what is your contingency plan? Do we have to dissect everything page by page, or can you bring to us how you treat this, and this type of thing? And that would make things a lot simpler, whether we could put 2020 stamp on it exactly. That's what those who have, sent this down the pipe is probably going to look at. Is it current, is it valid, and is it going to stand up under various tests? If they're asking for troubleshooting, I think we can provide them with enough, but whether that solves some of the problems or not, I'm not sure, but might be a trial and error thing too.
The good thing is we do have partners to collaborate on with this, so we'll reduce the costs and some of the impacts, so it's not just something that's gonna keep our staff busy for a while, we're spreading the burden out. Mr. Armstrong?
And really, that was the intention of working collaboratively on this, because we're all dealing with the exact same agencies, Kennedy's and Breville for the most part. So we're all dealing with the United Counties when it comes to social services. We're all pretty much dealing with a limited number of healthcare providers and hospitals. And certainly the OPP is all of our partners of the municipalities that are remaining. And so if you're engaging all of those along with the health unit, then a lot of what you're mentioning, and instead of engaging those 10 times over, you engage them once as a group, and then be able to extract the data that we need to be able to create the plan.
Yeah, that should make it a lot more efficient, obviously, save everyone some money and time. Further comments? You see pencil, you're about to, no?
I have some reservations about the motive for this, but we'll see what occurs.
Which part? All? The question I have is on the fire services side. And I want to make it clear if anybody thinks we're trying to undermine our local company or have any issues or concerns with them. We absolutely do not. This came about, there was provincial funding provided. We are looking at ways we can maybe tweak buying arrangements. Maybe, it never hurts to get together and talk about how we can work better together. And we're not paying for it, so good. But want to make that clear both to our fire company and for people out there. This is not any sort of expression of dissatisfaction with the service provided by our fire department, which, it's to me, it's the best volunteer fire department in Eastern Ontario, if not the province, if not the country. What they do for us is absolutely superb. The one question I do have though, and it's, where I'm going with this, the fire services agreement again, that's still hanging out there. We do have that bigger issue with Edwardsburg Cardinal with regards to our coverage of the industrial area. We don't receive a great deal of revenue for that. And I'm wondering how that's going to be potentially brought into this greater look at fire services for the United Counties. Because it's got to come up, because I'm assuming there's all sorts of patchwork arrangements, people covering different areas of different municipalities. But I just want to make sure that we're really well represented on this, because we're only one small part of this study. And I think we have kind of a unique situation here, where we are putting major dollars, we're risking life and limb. There's a lot there in what we cover in an industrial park, where if there's an accident, if something happens, it can be devastating. So we do need to see proper compensation for that recognizes that recognizes the great work our guys do, the risk they take. I always go back to when that transformer blew at Prismian there X number of years ago and lit the sky up in the area, and our guys, like everybody else, want to run away from it, and where are our guys going? Right to it. So that's scary, sitting here as the mayor of the municipality, that we are having our great fire department going to something like that. And I know they want to do that, that's what they're dedicated to, but at the same time, things like that can be scary. So there's got to be a fair and more equitable arrangement there. And I want to make sure that's not lost in this greater look at all things Grenville. So I know that's a lot just to throw. I should say comment, but do you have any comment on that and where we are with the fire services agreement? Because we really need to get some finality on that. That's been going on for years.
So as I mentioned previously, we've done the technical side in terms of mutual aid and being able to benefit each other and that sort of thing. I think when we discussed the service delivery review, we said we would take a look at that. We have been able to identify municipalities that are paying other municipalities for shared services, and that's where I'm actually focusing on, is being able to reach out to those municipalities and understand what the structure is. So certainly that's where we are. Both studies, our service delivery review as well as this, have to be done by June 30th. And so I think all of those three things combined will allow us to be able to move this forward.
Okay, because that's the one thing that hasn't come back to council in terms of what our comfort level is with what, Councilman Collins always brought this up, it's been a big issue with me. We're spending millions of dollars on buildings and equipment and so on, and, you know, maybe the end result of this, maybe we don't want to do this anymore. Maybe Edwardsburg Cardinal should build their own satellite fire station to handle the industrial park. Maybe that's a better option, or maybe they do fund this more. There's just gotta be some solution to this that works for us. Councilman Collins?
Yeah, you bring up some excellent points, Mayor Todd, and I agree with you completely, and you're right, I have brought this up a number of times, but it occurs to me when you were talking that you're talking about this fire agreement, and it's been there for years, and I suspect, I wasn't here when it was created, that the Edwardsburg Industrial Park didn't exist. I mean, the federal government owned the port, and there was not much going on there. They stored salt across the road, and other than Prescott Machine and Welding, there really wasn't anything else down there. And now, if you look at it, there's tremendous activity, tremendous possibility for loss of life down there if something tragic happens in one of those industries. We have ships coming in out of to the port all the time. What happens if there's a fire in a ship? Do we have to report for that as well? The circumstances have changed tremendously, and I have no problem whatsoever, and I'm sure our fire department has no problem whatsoever, covering Wexford or the houses in Johnstown, or if there's a fire at the trailer park at Granville Park. But that industrial complex area, which seems to keep getting added on to, that is an issue, and that needs to be dealt with. And when you say maybe that should be just taken right out of the equation and they cover it, I think that's something we should discuss.
Yeah, I think that the time is, for all those reasons, the time is now to have, it's overdue. It's just been, and, you know, it's on us for that because it's been sitting there for years. We've talked about it since day one, going back to 2006, where I think this has been coming up, and it's just never been the right time for it. We've never quite gotten to the point where we think we've tweaked it a little bit, but not much, and it doesn't recognize all that industrial usage in the last decade or so. So, you know, we don't want to be the bad guys here and impact on development down there and the growth, but there's got to be a proper understanding of what we're willing to take on in terms of risk, in terms of expense, all of that. So that's a lot to throw at you, I know, tonight, but this is a major issue. Councilman Schenker.
Just through you, Matt, will this subject that we're discussing right now be part of the regional fire services study?
Certainly we will address that and be able to say how do those models look and what are the possibilities. So I'm more than happy to take that back and say this is something that the Prescott really wants to drive out of this.
I think that's a good first step for us, at least to start that way, and then work our way back to our agreement.
Yeah, the only thing I would say, just to emphasize, we should have an opinion from council that I think can go to this study. So Mr. Armstrong could be tasked to bring that back to us so we can decide what our comfort level is, and then we can provide the feedback before the study's finished, because we're one small municipality in the great big world of Leeds Grenville, and I've seen how this happens at times, where the separated municipalities get shunted to the side. This is one case that can't happen. So just getting it out there, how important that is. Any further comments on that? Thank you very much for your work on that, Matt. If you whenever you can bring something back, just give us an update on that as soon as possible. Fantastic. Any further discussion on the motion? So with that, it has been moved by Councilor Ostrander, seconded by Councilor Schenker, that council directs staff to participate in the regional fire services study and the regional community safety and well-being plan. All in favor? Motion carried. 12 resolutions, none this evening, 13 bylaws, couple tonight. 13.1 is the sale of surplus land, 555 King Street West, which is of course the front building at the health center. Councilor McCollum, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Burton, that bylaw 07-2020, being a bylaw to authorize the sale of land with the corporation of the town of Prescott to the corporation of the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. That land being part of lots 45, 46, 7, 47, Southside King Street, Block 3, Plan 19, Town of Prescott, designated as parts 1 and 7 on 16R6207, being part of PIN 68162-0065 in brackets LT, be read a first and second time.
Thank you very much, Councilor McConnell. Just before I go back, can you give us just the steps next on this? What we're going to see unfold in the next few months if we vote the affirmative on this?
So, we will be working towards the revision of the zoning bylaw to remove the restriction, and then from there, I believe the United Counties will also formally accept the offer, and so that is kind of how we progress, moving towards the transfer date at April 30th.
So that also, just to clarify that as well for the user groups, that gives them that extra time as well. So people at home know we're not evicting anyone immediately. There's a transition period, and we're working with anyone there that's looking for other space.
Correct.
Just to underline that. Open up for discussion, Councilor Young.
I think the only point that hasn't been mentioned is the price.
That's a good one.
How it was established. We had two independent reviews, and they both came remarkably close, actually. And the offer that we received was at the high end of the higher offer, so they paid us absolutely the top end of what the appraisers assessed the value.
Excellent point. Yeah, that's one we really want to make clear, because I actually did get that question, people that thought we were giving the building away. So yeah, it's full market value at the high end of what was assessed. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Councilor McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I think I will just point out that the signage that we have on that property as part of the deal will continue there. So the big cement or stone sign, Prescott, plus the other one that has the logos of all our local organizations will remain as well. That won't change. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Burton, that bylaw 07-2020, being a bylaw to authorize the sale of land with the corporation of the town of Prescott to the corporation of the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. That land being part of lot 45, 46, 7, 47, Southside King Street, Block 3, Plan 19, Town of Prescott, designated as parts 1 and 7 on 16R6207, being part of PIN 68162-0065 in brackets LT. Be read a third time, passed and signed by the mayor and clerk.
Thank you very much, Councilor McConnell. Final discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. And moving on, one more bylaw this evening, 13.2 is a bylaw enforcement officer. Councilor Burton, please.
Thank you. It's by myself, seconded by Councilor McConnell, that the bylaw 08-2020, be a bylaw to appoint Paul DeDecker as the municipal bylaw enforcement officer for the Corporation of Town of Prescott, read first and second time.
Thank you very much. Councilor Burton, would you care to speak to this, lead into the discussion?
Sure. This is housekeeping. We're appointing Paul when he's out snow blowing and clearing the roads. If there's any vehicles on the road, he's able to ticket or get them towed. So he doesn't have to wake up Sean in the middle of the night. So I'm thinking that Sean's going to be very appreciative. So.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Further comments, questions? Councilor McConnell,
We
please.
discussed this, I know, last term. I could swore that we already did that for Paul's predecessor, but I'm told we didn't.
I remember
I
coming
don't
on.
have a great
doing it now with a successor, so it's, yeah, I remember it being discussed, I don't remember what we went with that, because it is an issue, as Councilor Burton mentioned, you know, no point calling extra people out when you're 3 in the morning and you're trying to clear the streets. Any further comments, questions? All those in favor? Motion's carried.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor McConnell, that bylaw 08/2020 being a bylaw to appoint Paul Bianco as the municipal bylaw officer for the Corporation of Town of Prescott be read third time, passed and signed by the mayor and the clerk.
Thank you again, Councilor Burton. Any final comments? All in favor? Did you have another?
Well, a question that just occurred to me out of the blue, which it should have occurred to me before, but do we actually have to name a person to do this, or can we name a position? Because
I'm seeing nodding.
It has to be a person.
it has to be a person, okay, well then that's, I won't go any further with it, it just seems to me if we nominated a position, then we wouldn't have to be doing this.
Yeah, whatever.
Exactly.
Okay, all in favor? Motion's carried. And that takes us through bylaws tonight. 14, new business. Any member of council have any new business to bring forward tonight? Seeing no. 15, notices of motion. Same thing. Any member of council have notice of motion to present tonight? Seeing no. 16, marriage proclamation. Nothing this evening. 17, period for media questions. Ladies, gentlemen, media. Any comments, questions tonight, Wayne?
Just regarding the fire services agreement with Edwardsburg Carbon, how much do they pay now?
Currently, it's approximately 15,000.
15,15?
And we also have one with Augusta with a similar amount.
But Augusta is mostly, if not all, residential. Edwardsburg Cardinal, obviously. Anything further, maybe? No? Thank you. So that does take us to 18, the closed session. We do have one item up for closed session discussion this evening under 18.1, purchase and sale. Councilor Young.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Shamgar, the council move into closed session at 7:16 p.m. for various matters pertaining to purchase and sale. Under section 239, 2C of the Municipal Act, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and that the CAO, treasurer, clerk, deputy clerk, and economic development officer remain in the room.
Thank you very much, Councilor Young. And just before I call the vote, I will note we'll be taking a very quick break and come back in 5 minutes. All in favor?